Hi, thank you for joining me for Bible study, the Prairie Oaks Pulpit Bible Study, and we're in the book of Matthew. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 15. We're going to start in verse 21 and read through. This is a passage you may be familiar with, but I have a sneaking suspicion that for you, it's like most people, this is one of the most uncomfortable stories in the Gospels. It's uncomfortable for us, but imagine being there. It's uncomfortable for the disciples and even more so for this woman. So, Matthew 15, verse 21, let's look at this. Then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came from that region and cried out to him, saying, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely demon-possessed." But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away. She cries out after us." But he answered and said, "I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Then she came and worshipped him, saying, "Lord, help me." But he answered and said, "It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs." And she said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the little dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered and said to her, "O woman, great is your faith. Let it be to you as you desire." And her daughter was healed from that very hour. Now, two things. One is to remember there's not just Jesus and the woman involved. The disciples are there. And Jesus is there to teach the disciples. And so think about their perception of this. And two, don't rush to the end, because that kind of makes it all nice and tidy for us. Let's sit in the awkwardness, the just plain uncomfort of this story. But we lead into it where, again, Jesus, people love his miracles. But the authorities aren't real keen on his non-traditional teaching. He's kind of disruptive in his teaching style, and they tend to be not the ones that he is praising. And so they're not comfortable with him. And so Jesus just goes out of Israel then. This is one of the few, if not only places, at least the farthest we know, that Jesus gets outside of Israel proper. There's a few times he goes across the Jordan to the east side, but Jesus has left Israel at this point, and he's in what is traditionally Canaanite lands, Tyre and Sidon, the home of Jezebel, if you remember the Old Testament stories. And here's this woman of Canaan who comes to him when he's there, perhaps just to get away from the noise and to get away from everything. And she's crying out after him. Now, mind you, she's a Gentile. She is Syrian, Phoenician. She's a Canaanite, a Gentile, and she's an unknown woman. You know, it's one thing not to talk to strangers. It's a whole nother thing to have this woman calling out to him, who is not even of his own people. This isn't, rabbis in particular weren't supposed to talk to people they didn't know, especially to women they didn't know. That's scandalous, in fact. And so I want you to think about that dynamic, because she's outside calling out to him. And what is she saying? She's crying out like a beggar, "Have mercy on me." She's desperate. She is in anguish over her daughter's severe demon possession. We don't know what the symptoms are, but it is severe enough that it's cruel. It's agonizing to this mother to see her daughter in this predicament. But what's really interesting is what she calls Jesus. Now, Lord can go both ways. It could be just, like saying sir, but it could also mean master. But the second thing she calls him just turned the knob to 11. She called him Son of David. That's a term for the Messiah. And the Israelites don't use that term until the end of Jesus' life, when they're on Palm Sunday that we looked at a few weeks back. And she just called him the Messiah. She just acknowledged him to be the King of the world. How does she know this? Well, she had to have heard something, and she had to have heard more than, hey, this miracle healer does some pretty amazing things. She believes he's the Messiah. That's way ahead of most of the people in Israel. But Jesus doesn't even acknowledge her. It seems like silence. And again, go back to, but that's kind of what a rabbi is supposed to do. It's like, I'm not going to just ignore it. Maybe it'll go away. Because he's not supposed to speak to a stranger like that. And the disciples, they're kind of in agreement with this. Just send her away. Tell her to go away. And I think I oftentimes thought, well, maybe they're just saying, well, give her a quick healing and get rid of her. But you remember, this is also the same people that chased children away because they were underfoot with Jesus. And this is the same people who, when a beggar or a blind person would cry out, they'd be like, shh, go away. He doesn't have time for you. So it's very likely this is a little more callous than you want to think it is. That they're just like, give us the word and we'll usher her on down the road. Send her away. Let's get rid of her. This is not good. This is scandalous. And so Jesus doesn't speak to her. He's speaking to them. He answered their question with something they would have agreed with. I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He is their Messiah, thank you very much, not for everyone else. This is their Messiah, their teacher. But in answering them, he's speaking loud enough for her to hear. And she's been getting silence before. Now she's gotten an answer. She's not given up. But I want you to think about that, because a lot of times we get discouraged as we pray. There doesn't seem to be an answer. It's just silence from heaven. It's very discouraging. But in her desperation, she knows she has no other hope. And so she doubles down. Lord, help me. Help me by helping my daughter. On this Mother's Day, here is a mother who is dedicated. Do something, Lord. And in calling him Lord, I think you're getting the idea, especially since she called him Messiah, King of the world. She knows she's not entitled to anything, doesn't she? She just wants help. And Jesus answers and says, and this time he may be talking to her, or he may still be talking to the disciples, because I want you to picture it this way. Jesus and his disciples are in a room, so to speak, and there's a door, and she's outside the door calling out. But now she has come closer to the door, and she is worshiping outside the door. Would we worship? It seems like we're just getting silence and getting rebuffed by God. Would we still worship him as Lord? I have to admit, it's a challenging position to be in, and it's hard to want to worship when God isn't answering our prayers. But she comes and she begs even more. And he says, still, the disciples are inside, and it looks like Jesus is pushing the door too. It is not good to take the children's bread and to throw it to the dogs. Now, being called a dog is an insult. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not, but it is an insult, especially among Jewish and other Middle Eastern people, because dogs were just scavengers and just, right there with pigs, except I guess just as dangerous. Bad bites and they didn't have pet dogs. And so they often called Gentiles dogs. And so again, go back to the disciples may be okay with this. It may be uncomfortable because Jesus is saying things that they're thinking. Oh, these dogs, ugh. And he's also saying something that makes sense. You don't take food from your children just to give it to wild animals. You might, but generally we would say don't leave the kids hungry while you feed wild animals. And that's what he's saying to them. But the woman isn't giving up. So he's insulted her. He's closing the door on her, but he's left the door cracked. Because Jesus knows hearts. And I can't help but think that Jesus knows how far he can push this woman. And he's left the door ajar in a way that he knows she will use. Because she says, yeah, I'm a dog. But you said little dogs, the pups, the pets. Jews don't keep pets. Romans do. And some other Gentiles do. She must be familiar with this idea. Because she's like, yeah, because the puppies, any crumbs that fall off the table, they'll lick those up. And that's all I'm asking for, Jesus. There's plenty of bread for the children. I'm just looking for some crumbs. The children are wasting the bread. In reality, the children of Israel, yeah, they're about to turn down their Messiah. And so there's more than enough bread to go around. But think of her humility. Just these little dogs like me. All we want is crumbs, Master. You are the Master. You are the Lord. You're the King of the world. Yes, Lord. In worship and humility, but in ruthless, relentless persistence. She says, that's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for. And Jesus answers and says to her, oh, woman, great is your faith. Great is your faith. This woman receives a compliment that, as far as I know, there's really only about 2 people who receive this compliment. A Roman centurion, when he says, Jesus, don't trouble yourself coming to my house because it would make you unclean and it's just a long walk. Why don't you just say the word and my servant will be healed? And here's a woman saying the same thing. Jesus, I'm not asking you to come to my house. I'm not asking you to lay hands on her. Just say the word and my daughter will be healed. I'm just looking for crumbs, Master, Messiah. And again, Jesus says, great is your faith. Let it be as you desire. Just as you're desiring and asking from me, have it. Great is your faith. But remember, this conversation is taking place in front of the disciples. Disciples, are you taking note of this woman's faith? He's told them just recently, why are you of such little faith? He's going to say it again before the end of the chapter. Why are you such of little faith? I fed 5,000 and you don't think I can feed this 4,000? Why are you of such little faith? Waves may toss. Why do you think I'm just going to let you die? And myself too. Here is what great faith looks like. I tested her faith beyond any other Israelite, and she has passed with flying colors. She's a gold medal in the Olympian test of faith and humility and being the persistent prayer warrior. She doesn't give up. Would we have that kind of faith? And her daughter was healed, set free, rescued that very hour. The disciples are about to be sent into the world. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. And right now they're getting the big lesson that the compassion of God is greater than the national boundaries of their nation. That this woman loves her daughter just the same as all the rest of us would. We would hope. This woman, though, has tremendous faith. She trusted the compassion and power of God and had the wisdom to hang in there all the way. We have to come in that kind of humility. We're not to come to the great physician asking for a tune-up, because we need a heart transplant. We need a resurrection. We need to be raised from the dead. And Jesus says, will you come closer? Will you worship? Will you trust me? Even when it seems like the answer is no. Will he still find faith on the earth? He did this day. Woman, great is your faith. Some things for us to think about. Sometimes God does challenge our faith, but let's persist in trusting him, in persistence in prayer. God bless, God keep you. Have a good Mother's Day.